Throughout the recent peaks and troughs of diplomacy on Ukraine, in one thing at least there's been constancy. Regular, large-scale Russian attacks. More than 100 drones were launched into Ukrainian territory overnight. This, the aftermath of a strike in northeastern Kyiv, Ukraine's second city. This morning, further south in Dnipro, the clear-up from another attack, which killed one person.
We'd already gone to bed, and then we saw it. First a whistling sound, and then the fire. We jumped up, but we didn't know where to run.
US efforts to reach a 30-day ceasefire, which Ukraine has agreed to, remain stalled. The Kremlin saying progress can't be as quick as Washington wants.
Let me remind you that President Putin said during his news conference in the Kremlin that he supported this initiative to establish a ceasefire. But before it is established, several questions should be answered and several issues should be settled.
But the separate US-Ukraine minerals deal that nearly collapsed in acrimony in February is set to be signed as early as this evening.
With World War III.
It is a deal on setting up an investment fund in Ukraine with equal managing shares and contribution shares. Contributions will be made in the form of money. The American side can consider new military aid to Ukraine. I underline that only new aid as a contribution to the fund.
On that, it seems the US has rowed back from President Trump's earlier maximalist demand that Ukraine pay back previous US military aid through the deal.
I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up.
There are reports tonight of potential last-minute hold-ups, but the Reuters news agency reports the deal, if signed, would see Ukraine put half of the royalties it receives from minerals into the fund. American miners would get preferential access to new permits, but the US would not get a share of Ukraine's gas infrastructure. Perhaps the bigger question for Ukraine, given mounting US threats to walk away from the peace process within days, would it ensure continuing US support if the war simply grinds on? One Republican former US colonel currently in Ukraine is hopeful.
In the case of the mineral deal, I think we are in a place where we can provide support to Ukraine. We have some degree of security and commitment, and it helps Ukraine to have some hope for the future. And even though there's threats going around, I think you're going to see continued support.
Ukraine says it's ready for talks on a settlement to the war, demanding that Russia first commits to a month-long ceasefire. But Russia instead is seeking major concessions from Ukraine, and the Trump administration says it's on the verge of abandoning the talks altogether.